Hello everyone, welcome back to Tina Teach Python. Today's lesson is about scope part 1. And in part 1, we'll be taking a look at local scope, what it is, how you can use it, as well as global scope. Okay? First part, what is scope? What do I mean when I say scope? It refers to the accessibility of a variable, and this could be a string, a number, a tuple, or a dictionary, or a set of data, basically. And a variable is only available in the region that it is created. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper on that. Let's tackle local scope first. If a variable was created inside of a function, or it was declared inside of a function, it belongs to the local scope of that specific function. Okay? So that is what local scope means. It's only available locally in a certain block of code or a certain region, and it cannot be used outside of that function. All right? It is not a global scope. You can't just declare one variable in a function and then create another function outside of that and use that same variable. You absolutely cannot do that. For example, I have my function, my func, and I have a variable string. I have a pancake. Now, I can print string, right? And I call on this function. So I don't need to print it. I don't need to print it anymore or assign my function to a variable. Just need to run my function and it will run the print statement. And this will return, naturally, I have a pancake, okay? But if you were to create a whole separate function down here using string, okay, str, and you try call it or print it, whatever, it will not work and it will give you an error. Next up, a function inside of a function. Now, as you know, we can nest function. So there can be a function inside of a function inside of a function and so on. If you create a variable that's in, let's say, the first function, and then you create a second function inside of the first function, the second function can use the variable that is inside of the first function, okay? For example, my func, num 150, and then I have another function inside of my func, which is multiply, which multiply, 150 to 2, and I basically put a statement that calls upon this function inside of my func. And when I call my func, it will run the multiply function as well, right? If you're missing this line, this function will not run. And what this will give me is the product of 150 and 2, okay? Let's move on to the next part, global scope. Global scope, as the name suggests, is the complete opposite of local scope. A global scope variable is created in the main body, so it's outside of a function. It's outside of a specific, limited block of code. It has a global scope. So they are available from within any scope, global and local. Any function, anything can use global scope variables, okay? For example, str Oreos. It's outside of any function. It's in the main body of the Python code, and it is accessible to everything. And my func here can absolutely use string, str. And if you call upon it, it will give you Oreos. And if you just print it, it will also give you Oreos, okay? Now, naming a variable. A local scope variable and a global scope variable are two different things, even if they have the same name. And I can demonstrate this by having str global chicken, and then str within my func local, it is assigned as beef. Now, if you call upon my func, it will return beef, right? It will give you beef. But if you just print str, this will give you chicken, okay? Now you see the dynamic between the two, all right? And these two are something that you do need to remember, because if you have a lot of variables and you don't pay attention to their scope, and when a function or something actually needs to use a certain variable, and then Python will return error saying that this variable is not, it doesn't exist, or it's not declared, or whatever, you may come upon that issue. First off, let's go with number, and I'm going to assign this 15. And now we're going to create a function, myNumber, right? And in here we have number, but this time it's going to be 30. Print number times 2, okay? Now let's call number, myNumber, and then let's print number times 2, okay? All right, once I run it, you can see that when I call upon myNumber, which takes 30 and times it by 2, we have 60 over here, very straightforward. But when I print number times 2, takes the global variable, which is 15 times 2, that is 30, okay? Two different things entirely. Now, let's try to have another function that's within myNumber, addition, okay? Print number plus, let's say plus 2, okay? And then we're going to call this addition. And let's run this again. Now with number, we're going to have the 30 times 2, the local variable times 2 first, so 60 goes first. And then secondly, we have addition, which takes the local variable 30 and plus it by 2. We have 32. And lastly, we have the global variable up here, 15 times 2, and that is 30. That's it. Okay, so that's it for scope part number 1. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and stay tuned for scope part number 2. Learn today, better tomorrow, and have a wonderful day.